Well, welcome everyone to today's Process Mining Academy session. We're back from our Knowledge 24 break, energized by all the interest and in-depth conversations about our ServiceNow in-platform process mining solution. Today's session is going to be focused on a very important but somewhat underutilized aspect of process mining. We'll talk about the finding definitions that surface as improvement opportunities on the summary and insights page inside of a process mining project. And I've got great news. Our process mining team here at ServiceNow is expanding, and one of my new teammates, Rozmin Parpia, is going to be leading the deeper dive portion of the conversation today, so everyone gets to hear a little bit of a different voice. She'll walk us through how to take the filter sets that we create while we're using the analyst workbench to identify opportunities and turn them into finding definitions that will surface on that as improvement opportunities on a recurring basis across other projects. So I can't wait. Let's get the logistics out of the way first. The purpose of these sessions are to help us all get better educated on ServiceNow's in-platform process mining capabilities. We'll provide how-tos, practical guidance and use cases, product updates, and just as a group exchange ideas and collaborate so we all continue to get better. How these sessions work, we have a scheduled topic that we'll cover usually for the first 20, 30 minutes or so, and then we just open it up for questions on a chosen topic for that session. Then we open it up for questions above and beyond the day's topic, like an office hours. These sessions are always recorded, as most of you know, and eventually we post them on the community. We usually get them out there within the day of the session, the live session. As we go through, post your questions in the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer them here today. And if we can't get them answered here today, we always follow up and post the answers on the Process Mining community page, or even use them as future sessions. This is the slide that says, hey, anything we say and do here today can't be held against us in the court of law. And it's also the slide that says, as part of these conversations, if we make any forward-looking statements about what might be coming in future releases, you should take them as such. Make no purchasing decisions based on them whatsoever. And of course, things are always subject to change. And I'm sure you're familiar with this and have read the fine print. Just as many of you know, my name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the process mining products team, but we do have a special guest. I hope someone who will become a very frequent member and presenter on these Academy sessions. Rozmin, do you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Dan. So I'm Rozmin Parpia. I go by Roz, and I work on Dan's team. And before that, I've been a ServiceNow implementer, implementing HR, ITSM, CSM workflows mainly. And I live in the UK right now, but I've been a ServiceNow implementer globally. And before that, in my past life, I was always into process analysis and Six Sigma green belts. I'm very pumped up about this product, and happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm super excited that you've chosen to join our band of merry process mining folk.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure. All right, so what we'll do, as always, we'll just start with the quick process mining 101 to get everyone level set on what process mining is and the value that it provides, just in case this is the first time you stumbled upon one of these sessions. Then I'm going to pass it over to Rozmin to start talking about turning your filters into finding definitions. She'll go through some slides. I believe she's got some demo to cover as well. We'll get your questions answered, and then we'll point you at some other additional resources above and beyond today that you might find useful as you go on your process mining journey. All right. So as always, the quick process mining 101 for the newcomers. So with everything we do, there's a design and desired path in our minds for how it should work and how things should play out, whether it be these Academy sessions or business process. And when you design things, you design for both efficiency as well as completeness to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design isn't always what ends up happening in reality. The reality is not all work flowing through a given process is going to take the optimal path. And that's going to have a negative impact on both the experience people requesting a service will be having, as well as the people that are trying to deliver that service. Now, identifying what is actually happening within a given process and then improving them isn't always easy and obvious. Actually, I was talking to a customer yesterday who said that we show them in 5 minutes what somebody spends 2 weeks doing on a regular basis. So what process mining allows us to do is use the audit log data that is generated as records move through a given workflow to create a visual representation of what is actually happening within a given process. And this new level of visibility helps us accelerate our ability to identify inefficiencies, non-conformant process activities, and improvement opportunities. So process mining gives us the ability to answer a whole set of process questions that historically haven't been very easy or have been super challenging for us to answer. So whereas the traditional analytics will allow us to answer a lot of the what questions about our process. Process mining helps us answer the why. So things like, where is our process getting stuck? Where is there any sort of unnecessary rework happening? Where are tickets, cases, incidents, ping-pong between different groups or teams? Where aren't we conforming to the process that we designed? All of these things have always been hard for us to answer and act upon, and now they're available in just a couple of clicks with process mining. We like to say that process mining is going to get you to the why behind all of your KPIs. And in doing so, I empower everyone in the process to make data-driven decisions about which improvements to make and help you prioritize which ones to focus on first. All right, on to today's deeper dive topic. Roz, are you ready for your first Process Mining Academy, your Process Mining Academy debut?
Yes, and I can't match Dan by any chance, but I'll try my best.
Sure thing.
All right, I'll just share my screen, Dan.
Sure thing.
Okay. So before we get started with turning filters into findings, I just wanted to take a step back and understand what are we doing here, right? So from Dan's previous videos on Academy, you guys, if you've not been through those, I highly recommend that you go listen to them. So, but in a nutshell, what process mining is that you'd go into your audit logs and you look at, these data points, which is same as like gazing at a starry night. It has, say, 10,000 incidents or cases. On each incident or case, there have been updates, like the assignment group has changed 10 times, the category priority has changed 5 times. So there are so many updates that it's overwhelming to understand and analyze the data. So that's when process mining comes in and it says, okay, look, you know what? I'm going to help you put some filters and put some findings on it. And that will help you see the constellation, which is a patterns in your own data. And from there on, you could make sense of your data and have ideas for improvement. And it will give you evidence for process anomalies as well. So that's where the filters and findings come into play. But what really are filters and findings? So filters are very easy to understand. You're trying to, filter out or dice your data and pick up a few records from it. So there are 2 types of filters. One is the conditions filter, which basically says that go to my incident table, for example, and only pick up records where active is false, or only go and pick up records that were closed last month. So that's a very simple conditional filter. As opposed to that, transition filter, it is a bit one level higher in the sense that it goes to the transitions between the 2 steps in your process. And then it would ask the system to pick up, for example, as shown here, show me only where the state is in progress, directly followed by or eventually followed by state is awaiting caller info. So that's the difference between those 2 types of filters. Now, when we come to findings, findings are slightly different. So findings, think of it like a pattern, like you must have already heard in previous videos. But in a very basic layman term example would be like my daughter, she wakes up in the morning, she takes 5 minutes to execute that step of waking up. Then she'll first eat her breakfast and then go and brush her teeth. So is this the right way to do things? Are the steps stacking up properly and nicely, and is it the right amount of time spent on each step? So that's a pattern that she follows. Now, if this pattern, if you look at your data with that same lens, you'd say, okay, my incident first goes from in progress, then it's going to awaiting caller info or on hold, and then it's going to resolve. So is this pattern the right way to do things? And the amount of time spent on awaiting caller info, is it like longer than 2 days? Is it the right amount of time? So it's basically just that. Its findings is like a pattern. And you could instruct the system to detect a pattern by 2 ways. One is that you create a rule-based finding, which is somewhat like this, where you kind of tell the system that go in there and find me all incidents where it was a waiting caller directly followed by not a waiting caller. And that's like a rule you set up in the system. And based on that, it will throw up the improvement opportunities or findings on the insights and summary page. As opposed to rule-based findings, you then have automated findings, of course, where you don't have to do much. We at ServiceNow, in every release, give you cool patterns. In Washington, you'll have 10 such patterns where we've already set up everything for you. For example, ping pong is a pattern which shows that a ticket goes from assignment group A to B, goes back from B to A, and it does that multiple times. So it's called a ping pong pattern. Likewise, we have rework, we have extra step. So for automated findings, you just have to specify which field you want that pattern to be detected on. So in this screenshot here, it's the state field, but you could literally just specify any field like assignment group to detect those patterns on. So that's the difference between rule-based findings, where you specify the rules, and automated findings, where we give you out of the box, you just specify the field, and that's it. Today, we're not going to talk about automated findings at all. We're not going there. We are just going to talk about how to convert my filters into rule-based findings, and that's it. But why would you want to do that? Why would you not just use filters, right? So the benefits are that when you set up filters, for example, I set up a filter on one of my process mining projects. Now, if I want that same filter on another project, I'd have to manually recreate it. So if you use findings instead, all you need to do is click on this button, add from library, and it will bring all your, these findings from process record to your project record. And you don't have to memorize what filters you need to put in. It's just going to, be a very simple import button that will help you do a one-time setup. It saves time, and it's a very easy way to also compare your findings across projects. So that's why those of you who are very comfortable with transition filters and are a bit more geeky would love to still go ahead and use filters, keep doing that. But for, saving time, or others who want to leverage the benefit of having a finding that kind of just click button and it's there in your project, then this session will be really helpful for doing that. So there are n number of rule-based findings that you could create. Today, I'm going to focus on only 3 use cases. So what does it mean by those use cases? So the first one is longer to route than resolve. So in previous videos of Dan, you might have seen him showing you the transition filters, like how a ticket first goes to in progress, for example, and then it goes into resolve, but it is resolved in just 30 minutes. But from going to from new to in progress, it takes 2 days. So what it's saying is that the resolution time was so less, but the routing time was 2 days. So you might want to use this pattern on your data. So I'll show you how to set up, instead of the filter, how you can set this up as a finding. And then that way you don't have to worry about again and again setting it up. The second use case I'll cover today is longer than a day to prioritize as critical. So if your incident is first tagged as a low priority, like priority level 3, but after 2 days, then it is suddenly marked as priority 1, and you are wondering, why is this happening? Why can't you from the get-go mark it as level 1 priority? So in this use case, it basically, the start condition is where the incident priority is not 1, and then it is 1 eventually. And it took at least 1 day for you to mark it as 1. So that's the second use case, which is a very popular use case for process compliance and adherence cases. The last one I'll show you is awaiting caller longer than a day. So where the start condition would be that the state is awaiting caller, and then it is not awaiting caller. But for you to switch from awaiting caller to say resolved or something else, it took you 1 day, which is a loss of time, and it would impact your resolution, average resolution time of your tickets as well. So this finding will be also very helpful for you if you can in some way just create a rule-based finding instead of using filters. So when I'm showing you the demo today, all I'll be doing is following these 5 steps. So first I'll go to the process configuration record. You could alternatively go on your project record, but then you cannot share it with other projects. You can only use it in your own suite project. So it's better that you go to the process configuration record and create this rule-based finding. You'll create the rule-based finding with me today by specifying the conditions. Then you'll click on add from library button, which will import all your rule-based findings from the process record to the project record. Then you'll mine the data. And then in the end, you'll see miraculously that finding shows up on your insights and summary page. But bear in mind that if you'd follow these steps and you're like, oh, I didn't see anything on insights and summary page, it's not happening. So there could be two reasons for it. One is that for that rule-based finding to show up on your insights page, it should be relevant for your data. If your data doesn't have that pattern in it, it will not show up on your insights and summary page. The second reason is that sometimes people create projects with activity like state, but their finding is based on the priority of the incident. So when the fields that you use to denote your activity is very important. So make sure that the activity on your project is priority, and then that rule-based finding related to priority will show up on your insights and summary page. All right, so that's it. Now let's go into the demo. So let me just bring that up here.
While you're bringing this up, Rozmin, I just want to say this is fantastic. And everyone seems to love your constellation analogy. I'm going to steal that and use that moving forward. It's fantastic.
I have stolen so much from you, Dan. I'm guilty of that. So go for it.
It's called borrowing. We're borrowing from each other.
Yeah. All right, so let's go digging into this topic now. So I've been a bit cheeky and I have a screen recording here. So you need to go into your process mining workspace, and there now I'm going to the insights and summary page where it says improvement opportunities, and I don't see anything that has those 3 use cases, longer to route than resolve. Neither does it have anything on priority or a waiting caller for a day. So I've edited the project now and I'm looking at the findings. Nope, nothing in rule-based findings around those 3. So now that we've seen that the befores, I'll just check the library just in case the library has any of those 3 use cases, which is longer to route than resolve, a waiting caller. No, nothing there. So I'm now going to create a new one. So go to your process configuration record by typing in the all menu. Once you go there, then the table I'm interested in is incident. You could pick up case or whatever is your area of interest. Automated finding, no, I'm going into the rule-based findings, which is on this tab. And here I see there is nothing on the process config record, which is around longer to route than resolve or any of my 3 use cases. So I hit on new. And then I just say, you know what, this is related to the performance of the process because it's taking longer to route than resolve. And I type longer to route than resolve. You can type any name you like, but this makes it easier for me to understand what the finding is about. I pick up long resolution time from the type. If you have performance analytics, make sure you link your KPIs here, highly recommended. Then I submit. Now, if you have that finding rules is something you need to create. So how will the system know how to detect incidents? So you have to specify start and end conditions. So first, the start condition would be, so if you think about it, you're looking at longer to route, but easier to resolve. So maybe the name here should be the state is in the in progress state, and the condition should be just common sense that it should be the field, and the field is the state field of the incident. Its state is in progress. And then are you going to match all occurrences of in progress? Yes, we're going to match all, not just the first and last, and submit it. Then the end condition is the state should be in resolved. So let's name it that. I really like to name my conditions exactly what it is, just so I don't have to scout for definitions. And then field state is resolved. And here you need to say occurrence is the last occurrence when the incident was resolved, just so you don't get tickets where resolve goes back to open or back to work in progress. It has to be the last one. And then what's the relationship between these two conditions? So we want to say that in progress eventually followed by the state being resolved and submitted. So this is the exact screenshot I showed you on my slides. State in progress, eventually followed by resolved. But how much time should it take for this to happen? So that will be the time setting should be under the finding constraints tab. If you go there, click on new. And then here you can say time taken for resolution. And obviously your start condition would be from in progress. Your end condition would be when the incident went to resolved. And then you can specify that it only takes 30 minutes or less to do this. So that's what you'll do in the duration max. And submit it. So that's it. We're done with the first setup. The time taken for resolution is only 30 minutes or less. Now, next rule will be, the second rule will be that it is going from new, state new. Yeah, nice and easy. State is new. And all occurrences to match, submit it. And then the end condition would be state is in progress. Yep, and we'll match all occurrences and submit it. And then the relationship between new and in progress should be eventually followed by. And that's it, submit it. And now the timing that it took about 2 days for just routing should be under finding constraints tab. You go in, type time taken for routing. And the start condition would be that you were in new, and from new to in progress is the end condition. It took you minimum 2 days. So it sometimes take longer than that. So all the instances where it took longer than 2 days will also show up in this pattern. And that's it. We're all set now. So once that you've done this of setting up a rule-based finding on the process record, then your next step is to go into your process mining workspace. And then you need to first edit your project. And then make sure that you go into the select improvements step and go into rule-based findings and add from the library. So sometimes if it doesn't show up in the library, hit the refresh button. In this case, it shows up there, longer to route than resolve. Beautiful. Pick it up, apply to your project. So you can apply to any number of projects because it's there on your process record. So you can share it with any project. Once you've imported it on your project, then the next step is to mine it. So mine the data again. And then after mining here, you can see that it has come up. Time taken longer to route than resolve, 200 incidents, all right? And then when you view it on your workbench, this is how it looks, 200 records. And this is the process map for just those 200 records of incident, which took you just 30 minutes to resolve, but took you 2 days to just route the ticket. All right, now I'm going to go with the second use case. So you go, now you know the drill. So you go to the process config record, go to your table, then go to your rule-based findings tab, not automated, and create a new finding there. And here you can say that probably this is related to conformance, because this one is about, it took you more than one day to just prioritize an incident as critical, and which is probably more related to process compliance. And the type you select as compliance. KPIs, please add them with your performance analytics. And then the same thing, you need to go into the finding rules tab and create a new rule to tell the system how to find those incidents. So the first thing you'll say, priority is not one, means not critical. One is for critical. And then which field should the system look for? So it should look for the priority field of the incident. Priority is not one critical, whatever you have it in your instance, if you've relabeled occurrences all. And then the end condition should be priority is one. Go and pick up the right field from your table, which is priority in this case. Priority is one. All occurrences of priority one to match, and then submit. And the relationship would be the priority is not one initially, but eventually followed by the priority being one, and just hit submit and you're done with it. But how do you specify that it took one day? So that is, by now it's under finding constraints. You go there, create a new constraint where you say time taken, longer than a day to prioritize it as critical. And your start condition would be that the priority was not one, and then it was one. And then you can just say that duration minimum 2 days, 1 day, whatever you want to. In this case, we are a bit stringent that it took just 1 day or more. So you can put that as a constraint and then hit submit. That's it. So now your rule-based finding is set up here. You'd go into your project again here on before going into the project, let's set up another rule-based finding, which is about awaiting caller. While we are here, let's just get this done. So awaiting caller longer than a day. Category could be performance, because it'll impact the resolution time. And the type could be long resolution time, because the ticket is awaiting caller for longer than a day. Again, attach as many KPIs. It's always good to have the KPIs linked. And then submit. And then in finding rules, new, and it's very easy. Start condition would be that state is awaiting caller. Sometimes people also call it on hold. So in this instance here, you'll see that we have on hold. So whatever you call it in your implementation, just feel free to pick the right values. So state is on hold, which is same as awaiting caller, for example. And then all occurrences to match and submit. Then the end condition would be state is not awaiting caller. So where you have now progressed the ticket to say resolved or some, in progress or something else. So state, field is state, and condition is that it is not awaiting caller, which is same as on hold. And the relationship, once you submit this, then the relationship between the two would be eventually followed by. So first it was awaiting caller, and then it was not awaiting caller. And it took about a day to do this. So it took longer than a day for it to go from awaiting caller to not awaiting caller. So duration minimum is 1 day or more. Submit it. All right, beautiful. So we've set up all the rule-based findings now. So now just to show you what happened when we ran the mining on the project. So you already know the drill. So I'm just going to make this quick in the interest of time. So when I mine the project, I use my priority analysis. And you see here that on the insights and summary page of the project, after importing and after running the mine, I see longer than reprioritize the critical. That is another one, longer than a day to prioritize. That's the one that we created. So there are plenty of rules that you could create. I've just shown you only 3 today. So I'm hoping that you can understand this concept and use it so that you don't have to create the filters over and over. Back to you, Dan. Thanks so much for the time.
Oh, that's fantastic, Rozmin. Let me just share my screen, and then there's a couple of questions that have come in that I think will get answered. So let's just jump to after your slides. There we go. So some questions came in while you were presenting, and fantastic job. I think the audience is excited to have you as a new member of this squad and a frequent contributor.
Thank you.
Because the content was I'm seeing some great feedback in the chat, and there's people that are engaged and nobody's actually left. We just the attendance keeps rising. Sometimes when I'm doing them, the people just leave halfway through, like, okay, I'm done with this guy.
That's just women power.
Yeah. All right. So one of the questions that came in was just kind of like asking about, hey, I'm working with the customer and they don't always have like a desired path mapped in their heads. And I think that's a great opportunity for process mining to kind of get a sense of use process mining earlier in a process, right? When you're starting to roll processes out. One of the things that some of you may have heard me say this before, one of the things that our CIO here at ServiceNow likes to say is that process mining helps us innovate faster because they're not worried about getting the process 100% right the first time, because they know they're going to have visibility into where it's going off the rails and where the opportunities to improve are from day one with process mining in the platform. So one thing to keep in mind is use process mining early and often as you're rolling out new workflows, and then use that data that it's providing as the baseline for the improvements that you want to make and start tightening it up. So that was one of the questions. Another question was just about the roles in terms of creating rules in the process configuration. And for those that are not familiar, there's 4 roles that come with process mining: a process mining admin, a process mining developer, a power user. I forget exactly which one that's called. There's a process mining analyst and a process mining viewer. Viewers just get to view projects and interact with them. Analysts can create their own projects, and the analyst would have the ability to create finding definitions for their project specifically. The developer / power user and admin would have the ability to interact with that process configuration record and create those finding definitions for multiple projects for people to use. So that's that one. Another question came in, and this is one I haven't answered it in the chat, so I'm just going to answer it live yet, about those rules, like the constraints, I believe is what the label on the on inside of the finding definition is, the finding constraints. Can they be dynamic? And the answer today is unfortunately no. I mean, you're kind of setting less than 2 days. It can't be less than 2 days times a certain value, but that is fantastic feedback and certainly something that we as a product team should look to include because it's a very, very good use case. So thank you for posting that question and providing that feedback, Alan. That's something that we can get to our inbound team and see what it would take to make that happen. I love that use case. One idea I have to think about it a little bit more. So I might come back and post a response on the community page when we post this, because if I give it a little bit more thought, there might be a way to accomplish it. But I love that as a future enhancement idea. So thank you for sharing that. This is what we do here. Dave, I saw you post it. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Awesome. There was another question that came in as I'm answering these questions. If you've got other questions, now is the time to post them in the Q&A. Somebody was asking about process mining for external data and finding definitions. So there is an Academy session specifically focused on external data and in the import process for bringing in process data from a process that's not running on ServiceNow. There's a wizard that helps walk you through that import process. But once the data is on the ServiceNow platform, these finding definitions are going to work just like they would for a ServiceNow workflow. So you'd have the same ability to create finding definitions. Actually, what we find is that the automated findings, the rework pattern detectors, the slow transition detectors, the extra step detectors, those are really, really powerful when you start applying them to that external process data that you're bringing into the platform. They're a great way to get an understanding of your process and figure out some things that you might not have even known to look for. So that was another question that came in. And then the last thing that I just wanted to call out, one of the things that I as you were going through it, Rozmin, and you got to that on hold step, it just reminded me of kind of something that I think a lot of customers overlook, is that process mining is great for allowing us to use to get some visibility into the actual on hold reason fields and values. It's one of the use cases we have posted in the use case series. So you know, in your examples there, you were adding state as an activity. You can also add on-hold reason as an activity, and you can start to look at things that not only went into the on-hold state, but maybe they went into an on-hold state awaiting caller, awaiting vendor, or awaiting change for X period of time. So if you want to get a little bit more granular as you're building these finding definitions, specifically in that on-hold scenario, you might want to think about adding an on-hold reason as an activity to your project as well. And I think that's again, we have a recording in the use case series on how to create a project that uses the on hold reason field. It's a powerful one.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think then once we learn the art of creating a rule-based finding, then the sky is the limit, because you now know what pattern are you looking for, right? So like you said, you know, it's not just restricted to incident table or only the state field. You could go beyond the state field and try to create your own patterns. So yeah, absolutely. Once you master this, and if you look at the previous videos of Dan on this topic, then I think you can go in your data and set any rules to look for a pattern.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Get them in there now, and we'll make sure that we address them as you're putting your questions in the chat. A couple of other things, some other relevant Academy sessions that you might want to focus in on that would be very complementary to this one is one would be the Academy session number 2. It's named Process Optimization Academy because that was the former name prior to Vancouver of the solution. But we have added some updated content there, an updated video about using the Process Analyst workbench to find opportunities, and it goes deeper or it goes into some of the filtering techniques that Rozmin was calling out earlier. So that's a great session for those that might be a little bit newer to process mining. And then we didn't cover, you know, the automated findings here today, the rework, the ping pong, the slow transition detectors. There's a whole Academy session on those automated findings. It's the number 20 session. So you might want to check that out if you're interested in the other flavor of findings above and beyond these. In terms of other resources out there, there is an on-demand training called Process Mining Essentials on the Now Learning site. We're actually in the process of updating it to the Washington level. It's a little bit dated at this point. And one of the things you may have noticed as Rozmin went through her demo there is that in Washington, we've added a guided setup experience for creating your project. So it's a little bit newer. So we got to get that training updated. But it's still a good foundational set of knowledge for you to go through if you haven't went through it before. We've got a lot of questions about like scaling a process mining program at our organization and how to get more people involved. One asset that's helpful for that is this Now on Now white paper that's out there on the community site. You can find it on the FAQ page in the Process Mining Product Hub. That's a useful resource. We're actually going to be scheduling a webinar about planning and scaling a process mining program because we're getting asked about it so much. We've got some really good content in that area. You've probably found this session on the community site. You might already know, and you should already know that there's a process mining product hub. Lots of information there. Great place to post your questions. Roz, Damien, myself, and the team, we check it daily and try to respond as quickly as possible to questions that you post there. So great way to get in touch with us. This is the Academy. You know all about it. You found it. This is now our 26th recorded session. So there's plenty of other opportunities to learn more there. I've mentioned the use case series a couple of times here. These are short little 5-minute videos about how to do certain things like SLA breach analysis, multi-hop analysis, on-hold reason analysis. And then we've started now, and next week will be our third office hours session. So specifically focused on just answering your questions. No content prepared for that session. We're just there for you to ask your questions live and hear our answers and learn from other people's questions as well. So you can register for that office hours on the community site as well. So those are some of the other resources that are out there for you. I'm just going to go back and check. Last chance for questions. If you got questions, please put them in the Q&A, or I see some of you are putting them in the chat. There was a question about process mining. Does it come as a separate plugin, or is it included with performance analytics? So the way that process mining is packaged, it's part of the enterprise offerings on both the ITSM and customer service management side of the house, and all of the industry flavors of customer service management. So in that sense, it's kind of bundled with PA or performance analytics for those that are not familiar. So with those enterprise packages, it is not included in the HR enterprise package. That's just to clarify that. And then there's the add-on. You can buy process mining separately if you're at a pro level, or get entitled to it separately. So essentially, everyone is going to have performance analytics when they acquire process mining. There's really no way to have process mining without performance analytics. In fact, we're running a webinar right after this that talks about the complementary nature of process mining and performance analytics. So very complementary solutions, but they're not, let's say, process mining is going to be an additional charge. All right. Question about the PDIs. So I have to check in on that. I don't have a good answer for that yet. The reason, to my knowledge right now, that process mining is not available inside of a personal developer instance is, to my knowledge, the personal developer instances are still not connected to the machine learning infrastructure, and that's what we use to do the mining. But you do have the option to install process mining in your sub-production environments and mine up to 3,600 records. So I would recommend you trying it out there in your sub-production environments. Just in terms of reaching out, I would say the person that wants to reach out about just talking about planning a process mining program and adoption and that, we will be running a session. But if you wanted to reach out to someone, you could reach out to your account team, or you could just reach out to me. You can either find me on LinkedIn, or you could always email me at dan.grady@servicenow.com. I'm happy to have that conversation. Let's see what other questions we got here. Yeah, so a question about is, can we use process mining to document the current state of a customer before implementation? So what we've seen in that area is customers who are using some other solution, not ServiceNow. They've looked at using the external data option to do that. So extract audit log data from the current system that the workflow is running in, pump it into ServiceNow via the external data option for process mining, and then they get visibility into the current process, so they don't make some of the same mistakes, or they can avoid some of the same challenges that they might be currently happening. So that's one way that I've seen folks do that. A question about how often process mining will be updated in the store. So the content packs get updated kind of fairly regularly, I would say, but the core is tied. The core process mining engine is tied to the family release. We don't do core process mining updates via the store, but the individual content packs that contain those process configuration records, they get updated on a outside of a family release basis. Any other questions, comments, feedback?
Dan, there's one on HR SD pack in the chat.
In the chat, did I miss that one?
Yeah, it says.
Oh yes, so so just to be clear, process mining is available for HRSD. Process mining is available for ITSM, CSM, HR, HRSD, and lifecycle events. It's available for App Engine. It's available for SPM. It's available for field service management and that external data offering. So it is available for HRSD. There is a content pack for HRC. There's actually two content pack for HR case as well as lifecycle events, or content, I should say, for HR case and lifecycle events. So sorry if I was confusing in how I answered that. Process mining is definitely available for HRSD, and there is a content pack. Just to be clear. Process mining courses on the Now Learning portal, there's two. So somebody's asking about a number of courses on the Now Learning site. There's two. There's that Process Mining Essentials course that I just touched on, and there's a Process Mining course for external data, or the external data offering. So there's two out there right now on the Now Learning portal. And then, of course, you have the Academy. You have the Academy sessions for, there's like 26 of them. So there's a lot of other content outside of just the Now Learning courses. Yep, just a further comment on process mining for HR. Process mining for HR there is an add-on SKU that customers need to entitle. It's not bundled with anything else on the HR side. So always have to pay for that one. Any other questions? I will say it again, last chance for romance. With that, we'll just kind of wrap up here. Next couple of sessions, these are always subject to change, safe harbor, but this is the plan right now. There is a demand for like a Mythbusters type of session, debunking some of the common process mining myths. So we'll do that next one. Next, we do want to make sure that we cover and have a session out there on the new guided setup experience in Washington. And then I think in the September timeframe, we will be ready to do our what's new for process mining at a Xanadu release. There is tons of new stuff coming. It's super exciting. It's really, I'm psyched for the Xanadu release. Just to give a little sneak peek, one of the things that we're actually adding is today you have clustering inside of there for short descriptions and descriptions, but we're going to have a clustering on top of the work notes analysis inside of Xanadu, and that's going to make everyone's lives 1,000 times easier because there's so much actionable information in that work note data. So super excited about that. This is the current plan, but as we get feedback about things that people want and sessions that they want, we'll adjust this calendar accordingly. And I just want to say, Rozmin, fantastic session, fantastic debut. Super psyched to have you on board and part of the team. So thank you for doing this today. And I look forward to many more sessions in which we're co-hosting together.
Thanks for having me, Dan. I loved it.
Yeah, that's great. Hold on, I've got one more question, and it's a good one, so we're gonna get it answered here. Just a question about the condition filter compared to the transition filter. You're very, very welcome. You're one of our favorite customers too. So Rozmin touched on the condition filter and the transition filter. Condition filters work just like the reporting and analytics, a reporting filter. So they're looking at the current state of the record when we apply that condition filter. So if the category is currently X, and you put in the condition filter category equals Y, you're not going to see that record, right? It looks at the current state of the record. But the transition filters are actually looking at the audit log data, the steps that the work took in the process to narrow it down. So it's looking and using the audit log data to filter it. So condition filter works just like reporting, current state. Transition filter is going against the audit log data there. So they're two different ways to use them. Condition filter, just since we brought it up and we're still on the topic, two ways in which we use I've seen customers use the condition filter that were like a wow type of thing. The first one is occasionally we get asked, can you use process mining to look at the map for just a single record? The answer is, of course you can. If you go into a mined process map, you can just put in the condition filter incident number 1, 2, 3 or HR case 1, 2, 3, 4, hit run, and it's just going to give you the map for that single record that matches that condition. So that's one way I've seen people use the condition filter that I didn't actually think they would use it. And then the other one is to do kind of side-by-side comparison of time periods. So use the condition filter to say, show me all the work that is closed before a certain date and save that. And then show me all the work that closed after a date and save that. And now you can do a side-by-side comparison of before and after, let's say, a process change. So those are two interesting ways in which I've seen people use the condition filters. I hope that helped to answer your question. Anyone else got any last minute questions up? Someone else can? Outside of process mining, is there any way to report off of the event logs or incident tickets? Not easily, Alan. We've kind of tried to lock down the audit log data because there's a risk from a performance perspective. If you let people report against that, there is a concept of metric definitions that you might be able to use, but in many customer conversations that I've been having since we've done doing process mining, actually, I just had one yesterday. The customer said, "Oh my gosh, you just saved me hours and hours and hours and tons of maintenance and support on my metric definitions that I've created in the past. I don't really need them anymore. This is a huge help." So the answer is yes, there's a way, but this using process mining is 1,000 times easier. All right. With that, I think we're going to get out of here. Really appreciate everyone's time and attendance here today. Definitely, Roz, really appreciate the effort you put into the content. And the turnout has been fantastic. We look forward to seeing you all on future process mining sessions. Happy mining, everyone.